0 right now.
That's okay, because I can hear and see everything. I'm just talking to Julie Fowler because I'm Ian Robert Jones, and this is the Arts BC Facebook Live, sponsored by the 2018 Arts BC Conference. This year's conference is taking place at the Nikkei Centre in beautiful Burnaby, British Columbia. And the theme of this year's conference is engagement in a new arts era. And we're going to be talking to Julie Fowler, who is the executive director of... Wait for
Island
it.
Mountain.
Island Mountain Art Society, I should say. What is it? First of all, welcome to the show, Julie.
Thank you. This is quite exciting. My first Facebook Live.
It's very exciting for us. It gets better too. You wait. What is it called? Island Mountain. Is there any islands in the Kootenays? Or sorry, in the Caribou, I guess.
The Caribou, it constantly confuses people. We have a mountain that's actually, if you could look straight through the wall behind me, you would see it. It's called Island Mountain. And the reason it's called Island Mountain is because there's water all around the base of it in creeks and rivers. And when this was a mining town, well, it still is a mining town, one of the mining companies was called Island Mountain Mines. So I think in the 70s, when we took our name, the name Island Mountain was more synonymous with Wells. Of course, now people think, of course, we're on the island, which we're not. So
actually, that's what I thought too initially. But then, what do I know? Tell us a little bit about yourself, Julie. Where did you get your start?
Actually, I'm from Vancouver, and I started helping with an organization. Well, it was a very loose organization, a collective really, called Living Closet, which was a group of artists that wanted to just find venues to perform. This is in the 90s in Vancouver. And we started doing events at people's houses, and then going to some public venues like Malkin Bowl was quite a venue to take on one year. Nobody came, but we had great stuff going on. We hadn't quite learned the promotional aspect yet. And then I moved to Montreal to go to school and went to Concordia University. And there I helped to start a festival called Art Matters, which still continues on. It's a student art festival showcasing all the arts, visual arts and performing arts at Concordia. And then I found myself in Wells when my friend Beth Holden, who now lives in Macleay's Lake near Williams Lake, she got a job at Island Mountain Arts and drove her car out here from Montreal, and wondered if there wasn't going to be parking available. And they're like, oh yes, there's lots of parking. So when she came out here, I came and visited her, and then and Island Mountain Arts has been going since 1977. So it had been cultivating an arts community here since then. And when I came to visit her, I thought, wow, this is a pretty cool place. And even though I'd grown up in BC, I had never gone this far north, which is actually only a third of the way up the province, which is quite amazing. It's still another solid 2-day drive to Yukon. Then a couple years later, 2003, I ended up here working for Island Mountain Arts, and we had the idea to start the Arts Wells Festival. So that started in 2004, a year later. And here I am still.
Okay, so that was good. I wanted a bit of geography. Wells, BC is in the Caribou, and it's kind of 2/3 of the way up the province. Is that what I get, or 1/3?
1/3, yeah. So it's about 8 hours north of Vancouver, and you head up through the Fraser Canyon, and you'll hit Cache Creek, and then 100 Mile House, and then Williams Lake, and then Quesnel. And at Quesnel, you head east for an hour, and you hit Wells, and then Barkerville. Barkerville is truly at the end of the road, which is just 8 kilometers from here, and Wells is almost at the end of the road.
Yeah, we're going to talk about remote locations in a second because actually it's quite important. It's very interesting how many festivals take place in remote locations and why, and we'll get to that. But I want to ask you first a little bit about Island Mountain Arts. What do you guys do?
Okay, so it started when it started in the 70s. It started as a school of the arts, a summer school of the arts. So that's the basis, was doing education programs in arts and always a broad range of arts. So ballet was a program in the early years, visual arts, programs for kids. We have a harp school that's now, this year will be the 32nd annual harp school. So we do quite a range of things in those education programs. And then we also have a gallery. I'm sitting in the Island Mountain Arts Gallery, and we do exhibitions throughout the year. And then we started the Arts Walls Festival. So we do education programs, have the gallery and the Arts Walls Festival. And then a few years ago, we started an Artists in Residence program. So basically just creating a space for artists to come up here and make use of the facilities we have. We bought a building where people can stay called The Nest. And we're doing a mix of people coming up on their own self-directed residencies. Actually, we have an artist, Lori Landry, who's over at the school right now, working on a body of work that she'll be exhibiting here in the gallery in June. And she's staying over at our Nest building. Yeah, so there's kind of, and then actually a program that's, well, what we have done over the years are some conferences. We started in the 90s with a program called Art is Your Business, and that ran for a few years, focused on giving business skills to artists. And then we also started one, this will be the 4th year coming up in October, called Northern Exposure, and it's a conference for rural arts organizers and festivals to get together and learn new skills and network and share ideas. So we kind of do a lot of different things, and I think that's partially because we're in a small community where we're doing a little bit of everything to meet the needs of where we're at.
Okay, so then, you know what? Now I'll ask you the remote question. Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's this explosion of festivals in smaller remote communities? Because there really is a lot going on. Why is that happening?
Yeah, there's an amazing explosion of festivals, and I'm getting contacted all the time from communities that want to start a festival. And I think there's sort of a mix of things. I know we chatted about this a little bit the other day about how people are really craving those opportunities to have community. So meet with one another. The arts are so wonderful for community building and for getting people together, having those shared experiences. And in a world where we are constantly getting more and more isolated, and more is, you know, the online world, and we have fewer and fewer opportunities to actually connect with people in real time. So I think, yeah, people are craving those opportunities, and I think, you know, as Canada gets more urban based, people who live in cities are looking for ways to get out, and so getting out, I mean, BC is just, there's so many incredible places to go to. So festivals, it's kind of a nice way to bring people out into more remote areas and have a bit of a structure to it, so they can come and get a sense of that community, but have something that draws them there, and have things happening for them when they get there. So, and then, you know, I think also BC and Canada is changing in terms of its industry, and a lot of small communities who were once based on resource extraction and, you know, our natural resource extraction now need to look at different ways to diversify their economy. So tourism and arts and culture is a great way to do that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It is changing. And I want to go back to that just very quickly about the community, because it's true. You and I both went to Concordia and we talked about that in Montreal. And it turns out that our birthdays are a couple of days apart. And it might sound sort of silly, but it really closed the gap between us. And I think there is this inherent need to connect with our friends and our communities and the people who exist in our communities. And so I think that's really true. And I also think what you're saying about tourism replacing resource-based economy things, that's another really good reason, why these things are happening where they are. Just want to pop this up because I haven't mentioned something yet. But you are the Vice President of Arts BC, and you can't see this, but Kathy Ramsey has just wrote, hiya, Julie. She's the president.
Yes, she is. Actually, I can see that. It does pop up on my screen.
You can see it.
Yeah, that's kind of neat. Yeah. Very proud to sit on the board of directors for Arts BC and be the vice president and work with folks like Kathy Ramsey and Patricia Huntsman. It's a really neat organization, and certainly this is the timing is crucial for arts in this province to really have good leadership and a chance to build our skills and get access to resources, which is exactly what Arts BC is doing, is helping build the leadership capacity in arts organizations across the province. And with all those changes, we're talking about more festivals, more focus on arts and culture. Finally, the government realizing the value of investing in tourism and arts and culture. It's really the chance for us to rise to the occasion and build really strong, stable organizations, and just keep pushing the arts for the people.
Yeah, I'm just sort of curious about something you just said near the start there. You said it's a very important time. I'm curious to know why that is, because we're calling the conference Engagement in a New Arts Era, and you're talking about the importance of the time. Why do you think it's so important right now, Julie?
It's interesting, actually. I was just at my house last night going through some old material, and I came across a newspaper article from, I think it was 2009, and it was talking about how all the arts groups were struggling because the gaming grants had been canceled for arts organizations, that's provincially, and no new investment had certainly gone into BC Arts Council. Harper was in federally and was doing all he could to cut arts funding on a federal level, and that was really hard times.
Yes.
And now there finally is a little more support happening. I mean, I think BC is still the lowest per capita funding of the arts, but finally there's more of an investment happening at the provincial level and the federal level. Organizations have gone decades now without any new monies for infrastructure. So those are the buildings that we all are housed in. And yeah, a lot happens online now, and you can have lots of digital focused stuff, but we still need places to be. So we were really almost, it was pretty lean times for the arts. And I feel like now there's more of a value being placed on it, and and the great thing about that is we are a renewable resource and 100% environmentally friendly. There is a wonderful economic argument for investment in arts and culture. It's not just about giving that handout to nonprofits. I mean, more tax dollars come into governments, all levels of government, whether it be your local, municipal, provincial, and federal. They collect more tax revenue from arts and culture than they give out in grants. So we are an economic engine, and to then get actual, the government saying the value of arts is kind of a bit of it's exciting. So yeah, now's the time for us to really get organized and educated and build our networks stronger and share those ideas and really move the whole society forward, really.
Yeah, and I think the Island Mountain Art Society is a really good example of that, because you're a networking opportunity for people and you're bringing people together, but you are an economic driver because you have your own festival, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that. I'd like to know about the Arts Wells Festival of All Things Arts.
Yeah, and just to touch on what you just said, last year especially, that was brought home in terms of how valuable the festival is in our community, because we were faced with almost having to cancel because of the wildfires. And
Oh,
of
yes,
course,
that's great.
5 festivals in the Caribou did cancel. We were pretty much the only one that went ahead. So we were very lucky in that regard, that we were able to do that. But we had a meeting about a week before the festival to make sure that everyone in the community was in favor of the festival going ahead. So that's the RCMP and the ambulance service and the fire chief and the Chamber of Commerce and Barkerville Historic Town and Barkerville Gold Mines and my board of directors and staff. And everybody was, in favor of us having the festival happen. Because at that point, people, all the businesses in Wells who rely on tourism had virtually no tourism. And so it was, it just sort of brought home how important it is, and not just to Wells and Barkerville, but the whole Caribou region, because people are traveling from big distances, so they're buying gas and groceries. I know Quesnel, if you go a few days before the festival and you're in Quesnel, you'll see everyone stocking up at the grocery store and getting gas, and so. Yeah, it's now we haven't been very good at even telling that story, the economic story, and our last economic impact study for the organization was done in, I think, 1999. So we're due for another one. And again, that's sort of classic with the arts, right? We're not always good at telling our story and giving those arguments, and that's where Arts BC. I feel like organizations like that help you get connected to resources and best practices and how to tell your story are so valuable. But yeah, I didn't really tell you about the festival.
Well, no. What you have told me, though, is really interesting. We like it. But yeah, tell us a bit about the festival. Is it a music festival? Is it a theater festival? How many people go? How many days? I've actually just put up the dates on the screen. People can see that you can go to the Artswell Festival of All Things between the 3rd and the 6th in August. But tell us about some of the details.
Yeah, so we get to use the entire town of Wells as our festival site, which is a really unique experience. So you can walk clear across Wells in about 20 minutes. It's a town of maybe 300 people these days. But we have these great community spaces, like this beautiful community hall, 1930s community hall that's painted bright yellow.
Wow.
We have a theater, a historic 1930s theater called the Sunset Theater that has been restored by this amazing couple, Karen and Dave Jeffrey, and it's a professional 99-seat theater. Beautiful acoustics and just a beautiful space to be in. We make use of the Wells Hotel and their pub and the Legion and the Bear's Paw Cafe and the Jack of Clubs lounge and bar it's pretty neat. And then we do have we have a couple outdoor stages. One at the museum. We have a tent set up outside of the Wells Museum, and then one in our school field. So we have Wells actually still has an elementary school, K to 7 in one classroom, but they get an entire beautiful school to be in. So during the summer, we make use of that for our festival kitchen, and we also have an outdoor stage in the school field. And then we also have performances out in Barkerville. So this 1860s gold rush town where people dress in period costume and interpret the gold rush history. And there's some beautiful buildings out there that that we get to hold performances in. So that's one of the really neat aspects for Arts Wells, is just the location and having the town. But yeah, a lot of music. We have over 100 musical acts, but then also a dose of performance of any sort. So we have some street performers and also some professional theater. We're working with the Sunset Theater this year to present some of the productions that they have been developing. So there's some really neat sort of new theater we're going to be showcasing. And we do some visual arts installations, and we have something called the Mini Mural Project, which actually the painting behind me is done by Caroline Anders, a local artist. And she started the Mini Mural Project like now, I don't know, 8 years ago. So every year we invite visual artists to come up and paint a 4x4 mural, or basically it's a large scale outdoor artwork, because we don't say what the subject matter is. They can really paint whatever they want on this 4x4 space. And then we auction those artworks off in the community. So now hanging on businesses and houses all throughout Wells are these murals. There must be close to, I don't know, 50 or 60 murals up around town. So that's pretty neat too. And
that's very cool.
Yeah.
So tell me something. I read somewhere that you guys are expecting something like 1,500 people. Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually it gets closer to around 3,000 people.
Oh.
But 1,500 is kind of our ticket base, but then we bring so many artists. Like there's close to 300 artists, because when you think 100 musical acts, and then there's the members of the band, and then we bring visual artists and other performance artists. So there's about 300 artists. We've got about 250 volunteers, and then media and guests and our crew, and then you don't actually have to have a ticket to come to Wells. So because we're in a town, that's one of the unique things, and kind of one of the things that's a bit challenging for us too, is that we don't have to, that it's a town that you're in. So you can come and check out Wells. You can't go into the venues where the festival is taking place, but because the festival kind of takes over the entire town. So, and it's also a very busy weekend traditionally for Barkerville. It's the August long weekend, one of the last long weekends, so a very popular family travel weekend, and Barkerville is a great family destination. So there's a lot of people in Wells and Barkerville that weekend.
Yeah, I've been up there. I told you I was 17.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing. Yeah, I think a lot of smaller arts organizations or people who are thinking about holding festivals might like to know how you manage the logistics of that. That's quite an influx. That's 5 times the population. No, that's 10 times the population of Wells. How do you manage all those new bodies? Where do people live? Where do they stay? How do you manage things like sanitation and I don't know what you deal with in logistics. But I'm asking the question.
All of those things you mentioned, it's a big challenge in Wells. Although the town of Wells in its heyday, so in the 1930s when it was built, it probably had a population of close to 4,000 at its height.
So they know numbers. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so the town is like, our community hall was built for a town that size and things like that. But at the same time, we don't have there's a lot of the houses actually in the 80s, because property values were so low at that time, they would burn old houses down just for fire practice, because
nice. Yeah, they need to practice.
So yeah, there's not exactly all that infrastructure anymore, and so camping, people have to camp, and we set up extra camp zones on the weekend, and even though there's quite a few flush toilets around the town in the public buildings, we bring in a lot of extra portable toilets. water stations, even though, obviously we're in a town, so there's tap water, but bringing in extra water. And yeah, it's parking is something that we've really been working hard on, and making sure that,
You
we
told
keep
me
the
parking is no problem out in Wells.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We still have space, but yeah, making sure that the people who live here in town can get to a parking spot that's in front of their house.
Good
Because
point. Good point. Good point.
yeah, so and that is a big part of it too, is working with the community. So we're not out in a field at a rodeo's grounds or something where you have more or less control of your site. Here, we have a lot of community conversations and partnerships that we have to forge, because we're taking over the whole town. And so there's great things about that, working with local businesses and things like that. And then, it can be challenging for folks that live here that, might not be so into the festival, and yet there's extra traffic, and there's parking could be a problem, and noise. There's definitely more noise in town when you have that many more people. So, but we've been lucky that, some of our big issues are like dogs. So don't bring your dog to Arts Wells, because, that's just a thing. And also we have this great little creek where people go swimming, and, sometimes we have the nude swimmers, and, that can irk some people in town. But at the same time, yeah, yeah, I feel lucky that the things that we've had to deal with have been manageable. We have a really respectful audience for the most part, so we haven't dealt with major issues, knock on wood, until, last year with the wildfires. That was certainly, it's like, okay, this year you get to learn about states of emergency, and yeah, that feels like something we all who work in bringing people to remote areas in the province, that we're all in the same boat with having to prepare for wildfires. I mean, BC is surrounded by trees everywhere, and there's still a lot of them that haven't burned yet. And I know we had a Fire Smart workshop out here in Wells, and I learned a lot about how to fire smart my house and things like that. Wow. But the fellow who was talking was saying that they don't even have the proper science to understand the forests that we have in BC now, because of the pine beetle and the spruce beetle now, and just so much dead wood out there. So and that's, climate change is a big part of that. So certainly, those are factors. You think climate change is sort of, I mean, it's amazing to see all the layers and ways that it can affect us. And certainly last summer it was like, wow, this is, and as we were lucky that we got to run, but it brought up lots of questions in terms of, what happens if you do cancel? How do you refund people? Who do you compensate? Could the organization even have survived it? So yeah, we were lucky that we didn't have to go through that scenario at the end of the day, but certainly we're thinking about it, every moment now, and how to mitigate and be more resilient, because it stands to reason we're going to be in this scenario from here on in.
Sure. Okay, Julie Fowler, I think we've almost run out of time with you, but I do have time for two quickies. I want people to know that, first of all, because you're the Vice President of Arts BC, you're going to be at the conference in Burnaby between May the 10th and 12th, and people can come and talk to you about festivals and how to go about it, and the logistics and the problems with wildfires if they want to, correct?
That is true, and I certainly didn't want to scare people too much there. I know I care about the wildfires, but yeah, definitely, I'm happy to talk. I think I'm going to be part of a huddle talking about festivals and resources. So I'd love to chat with you if you have questions in that vein.
Yeah, I think it's great. You're a real resource. Like I said, you've gone the distance. You're super experienced with festival producing and hosting and running. And I think if people out there are either intimidated or nervous or need more information, Julie's a fantastic resource. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I'm asking every guest, Julie, for a conversation starter. And I did warn you about it. I did tell you about it the other day. So I want to know if there's something you think that the arts community or people in general should be thinking about when it comes to festivals, because there's a lot of change at festivals. You know, we see drug testing there now. We see safe places. We see sober camping. There's lots of change. What would you like people to think about when they're thinking about festivals? Maybe from from your perspective. Please look. Oh no, it's that moment.
Oh yeah, there was that question you asked me to. Well, I think one of the things I bring it back to the community aspect is, you know, what is it that really draws you to that experience? I mean, I have my ideas of what I think that is, and that's that connection to community, and maybe for people to just really think about what that means and the value of that, because I think we take that kind of thing for granted. A lot of times anything that doesn't have a monetary value we take for granted, and just to really kind of value that aspect and think about that when you go to these gatherings. Like, why is it that you are drawn to go to a live music concert or an art gallery or a festival? What is the feeling that you get from that experience? And if only we could live like festivals every day of the week, right, where we're in this beautiful community and celebrating and yeah, just think about the value of that.
I think that's a great question. So what motivates Julie Fowler to go to festivals?
Oh, I really do love seeing the connections that get made, and that I've been a part of creating those connections that maybe have gone on to create great friendships, or even, you know, I know that there's been a couple weddings
married who met at a festival.
Yes, we've had a couple weddings at Arts Wells. There's definitely some babies that have been born as a result of Arts Wells, and then it's been really, really cool to see friends of mine who have kids who started bringing them to Arts Wells 15 years ago, and now they've grown up and they're doing, and certainly you can see that there's probably a bit of influence that they got from coming to the festival, and a lot of them, actually a few of them for sure, have gone into the arts, and whether I can claim that, but I definitely I love seeing the fruits of that labor, and it's super rewarding.
Okay, Julie, thank you so much. Awesome chat with you. You're amazing, and I think what you're doing up there in Wells is fantastic. So Island Mountain Arts Society, thank you for sending Julie our way. Well, it's kind of obligatory, actually, the vice president. I won't ask you about what the conference agenda is about, though.
It's going to be really great. Just come, and I'd love to see you there.
All right. We'll see you there too, May 10th to 12th. Julie, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.